My coffee. Skipped yesterday's sort of stream, but while I'm setting up, I thought I'd pop in here and talk about a few. I think this is my opportunity. It's like disguised as this sort of overarching goal to discuss narrative, but it's sort of my. I think I should hit the nail on the head. What these kind of videos are just my attempt to sort of figure out the world. I think that you guys are relatively kind of in the same boat, just trying to understand and contextualize what's going on out there. There's one thing that I can't identify straight away that I think is a massive problem, and I think that it's sort of disturbing, and it's sort of packaged in a number of things that I could completely disagree with. But it's the polarization of the whole world, right? It's this idea of picking sides, and that there's no middle ground, and it's the vilification of the middle ground, and then the gap that's just widening. So views get more and more extreme, magnified by Facebook and social media and all that kind of stuff. Where not only are you expected to shore up your defenses and take a side on an extreme, but you're also severely, you're just given a sound drubbing if you don't toe the line of one side or the other, right? And I can understand where it's come from. It's not this conspiracy. It's not even mob mentality, really. I think there's a sense of identity that's encapsulated in that. But the problem with that, though, is that it's starting to reduce our arena for argument and our ability to sort of be able to weigh various sides. And I've never been a huge believer in blind faith. I think it's ridiculous, and I've always raised to question everything. Had a nuclear physicist for an uncle, so and I was also told, well, not told, but taught that there's a solution for everything, right? There's absolutely a solution for everything, right? Because number one, there are finite ends to things, and number two, things are constantly in evolution, constantly in flux, right? So those are two things that you can firmly rely on. And so for someone to steadfastly say this is a problem that can never be solved, it just doesn't compute for me. And then for people to also say this is it, this is the truth, it will always be truth, and it will be enduring, doesn't jive with me, because things change, conditions change, and how we adapt to them is incredibly important, right? So the one thing about sort of inhabiting the middle ground, I think a couple of different things that I think are erroneously sort of fueling this polarization. One of them is this idea of toughness. This sort of infuriates me, and I think the reason why it does infuriate me is because I went through a massive journey with something that polite society these days refers to as toxic masculinity, but I don't think it's toxic. I think there's a certain, as with anything, when you get an extreme scenario, it's damaging, right? But to a certain degree, I think there are areas of masculinity that sort of need to be explored or expressed. And how do you express that? And what is that? What form does that expression take? Taking into account that the times have evolved, the one thing we can't do is bury it and hope it goes away. Again, I'm not a firm believer in abstinence either. I don't think abstinence is a solution, and I think a lot of progressive thinkers believe that as well, right? So there is this renewed sense of toughness reinforced by the tribalization of taking one side or another, right? It's like if you don't stand by your particular arena, then or you're not standing and defending that particular arena, then there's this sense that you're not tough enough, right? So that's an interesting kind of concept to play with, right? And I wonder sometimes how, if we take a look at where narrative has ended up, so to bring the discussion back to narrative, right? And we take a look at popular cinema and popular games and things like that. The success of the Marvel franchise, which still to me feels like something relatively new. But if we take a look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it is a decade old plus. So it's been around for a very, very long time. It's become the de facto way of producing entertainment property. You have to have story worlds and transmedia projects and things like that, right? So you take a look at that, and it's predominantly Jungian in flavor in terms of its underlying themes and sort of conclusions and that kind of a thing. A little dash of Nietzsche in there somewhere, right? So that's all part of another stream. But I think that is that fueling our current situation, or has it been fueled by? I don't know, right? That kind of needs a little bit of investigation, right? But the idea also of taking a look at any sort of idealism and saying that you can be idealistic in a centralized, you can be a centrist and an idealist as well, right? I mean, where are those dreamers that dream about the big tent, the very, very big tent that welcomes kind of everybody, I think, see, this is what baffles me, because originally the idea of progressive thinking was inclusive, right? Let's make that tent huge. Let's bring in absolutely everyone, even our enemies. And that's sort of gone by the wayside, I think. So, yeah, I was originally going to talk to you guys about something else, but it's rapidly becoming this discussion of polarization, right? And how dangerous it is. So I think one of the big things, especially talking to you guys out there in terms of the creative arts, media, entertainment, right? But let's put it this way, right? So when we're talking about villain characters, right? I generally say never pass judgment on any of your characters. You'll write a two-dimensional character, absolutely, right? So when you create a villain, you want to create a villain that's completely fleshed out, believable, human, almost attractive to your audience, right? You can't do that if you set out by writing your villain like, I hate this guy, right? Because all you'll do is write about everything you hate about that guy. And what you'll come up with is a complete cardboard cutout caricature. Why do we do that in life then? Why do we do that in life? Right? If we know as creative people that that is the wrong way to go in developing any character, not just villains, any characters. It's a wrong way to go about it. The same with a good guy, right? You want to imbue the good guy. Generally, you start off wanting to imbue the good guy with everything that you wish you could overcome in yourself, or any personal failings or that kind of thing. And then all those qualities that you admire in others, you put all that stuff into your hero. And those are bland, tasteless, awful heroes, right? So then you back up and you go, well, I got to give my hero problems. I got to give them, they're not so squeaky clean, they're dirty, right? That's why we're attracted to Batman and Wolverine, because they're not perfect, right? And they're more believable in that regard. So we flesh those character outs. Why don't we do that in real life? Why don't we do it in real life? With real people, right? With real systems of beliefs, right? Why do we spend so much time dirtying up our characters and then suddenly turn around and expect clean-cut definitions of the people we meet in daily life, right? Case in point, can any of you guys out there believe in the honorable Trump supporter who's very intelligent, well-spoken, and may actually share a lot of beliefs common with you? I'm having difficulty saying that out loud, right? But that's what I mean. It's all about trying to find that empathetic way of interpreting the people around us to try to find understanding and commonality without having it be an attack, a constant attack. So yeah, being a centrist is often vilified as well. Middle grounders, fence sitters, can't make a decision, can't have an opinion, right? That's patently untrue, right? I think to a certain degree, people who have that sort of an open mind to listening to ideas from the left and the right are actually far more powerful. And I'm not just saying that because I inhabit that particular camp, right? I'm saying that because they can see the failings and the shortcomings of either side, right? And I think let's put it this way: you ever see or read those stories or see those movies or TV where you've got a villain, and then you got the right hand man, and the right hand man is constantly playing both sides, right? But the right hand man is the most sussed out of everybody. Oftentimes they'll flip the right hand man and make them the villain, right? But an interesting journey would be Tyrion Lannister, right? He's definitely and same with Daenerys, right? In Game of Thrones, they're definitely the middle ground guys. They're hyper intelligent and aware enough to know what's going on either side, and they play both sides, sometimes against each other, or sometimes showing up one side versus another, and definitely moving from side to side, right? I think in a lot of ways, well, I guess they can also be defined as traitors. So that's also, an interesting definition. I just talked my way into a corner. Do you see what happened there, guys? Talked my way into a corner. But that's what this is all about, is just trying to sort of figure it out. But one of the things that I enjoy is being able to see the viewpoint of everybody, right? And trying to understand them. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely leaning more towards leftist, progressive. Most definitely, wholeheartedly, right? But it's about, not for me about choosing a side, it's my perspective. It's the ledge from which I stand, where I look across the chasm and try and understand the ledge across the chasm on the other side, right? And then, attempting to build a bridge, to use that tired old metaphor. But yeah, that's why I talk about the things that I talk about. It's an effort to be able to understand what we're going through, understand the divisions that are happening all over the planet, trying to determine why it's happening, because it's not an isolated, we're talking millions of people. Millions of people would rather choose a side on the left or the right than to try and figure out what is actually happening with humanity and society and all of us in general. And so that concerns me, and I want to sit here and figure this out. So that's kind of why I wake up in the morning and have these crazy thoughts. Anyway, I talked longer than I meant to because I got a lot of work to do. So I'm going to let you guys go, and we will see you tomorrow. These, I think, might be a bit more sporadic because my week is a little bit busy, but I'll see if I can pop in here tomorrow early in the morning